Okay.
Yay, we're live! So I should probably put my cup of tea down since I'm the one that's going to be talking. Hi guys, welcome to Movie Club Strikes Back, our once-a-week hangout on our channel where we talk about all things movies and movie-related and cool stuff like that. And this week we've got a pretty cool topic, I think. But first, let's see who we have here with us today. Baxorn, take it away.
My name is Baxorn. I pour myself out to Harry Movie Club, SourceFed Nerd Anime Club. Sometimes I post video game type stuff on my channel and just general random stuff.
And I think you just like saying the word whore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Meta, aka Meta Medicine. You can find me pretty much on any social media under that. That's my YouTube channel as well. I usually use these hangouts to find any excuse to talk about 50 Shades of Grey, so let's see if that's going to happen tonight.
Yay!
Fantastic.
I'm Mr. Harry Brett. That's my channel down there. I pretty much do videos on absolutely everything. For some reason, I'm wearing glasses that seems to want to reflect the hangout. So look, it's Hangout Inception. So, yes.
Hi guys, I'm Nina. My channel is Blog Life Nina. I do makeup videos and haul videos and videos about movies and videos about books and pretty much anything I just want to talk about because I don't have a type.
Ray, that would be you next, sweetie.
Sorry. My Twitter is Raymond H. Smith. My YouTube is around there somewhere, HS1984. No one has ever heard of, and no one will ever want to watch. Great business strategy for starting a channel, by the way. I have one famous Hot Popsicle, so hello to Hot Popsicle. Okay, next.
I am Liam on this thing. Observatories everywhere else on the internet, everywhere. Trust me, just type it anywhere and you'll find something to do with me, unfortunately. Or you get, I don't know, maybe. But I'm here to terribly misrepresent Scotland. I barely do anything on my channel as of late, and yeah. Let's see how I annoy people tonight. Hi.
Oh, you could never annoy us, Liam. Never, ever. No matter how hard
Remember
you try.
said those words. Remember.
Shut up. And I am today's host. My name's Kiwi. I have a real name, but no one ever remembers it, so there's not much point in saying it anymore. Whatever. And today, we're actually, the topic for our hangout is called The Classics, Past, Present, and Future, because everyone has those movies that not only do the movie community consider to be like the classic movies that you should have watched if you consider yourself any type of movie aficionado, but we all have our own personal preferences as well and what we consider to be, you know, our top watch mandatory classic movies that, you know, we will tell other people you need to see this movie. So because we've called it the past, present, and future, we're going to start way back in the past and about what sort of like really olden day classics, like the early days of cinema. So I'm talking like pre-19, well, say pre-80s, pre-70s, since a lot of good cult classics do come from the 70s and 80s. But yeah, what olden day classics do you personally consider to be like mandatory movie watching? Who's got, so now I did put this out there ahead of time so that everyone would have a bit of time to sort of think about these movies. Baxon, why don't you start us off?
Movies that I think are mandatory type watching are, well, you have Clint Eastwood with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's an awesome movie that started off in the 60s. Like I was mentioning previously with the off-air chat, well, yesterday Godzilla came out, and Godzilla is 1950s. Those would be some of the early type movies that are the starter type movies that are must-sees. Even though Godzilla is a guy in a puppet and it is really bad for the 50s, it's still just one of those ones that you have to watch.
But I mean, that's part of what makes it so like must see, is because it was so bad, but it's like iconic. I mean, you know, the guy who's just like standing there pointing up at it, going, "Godzilla!" I mean, I watched that movie just for that scene. Cracks me up every freaking time. And now I can't say Godzilla properly. It always has to be Godzilla, which is terribly racist of me, I know, but it's funny, so I don't care. But maybe before I dig myself a deeper hole, we should try someone else. Ray, what have you got?
Alfred Hitchcock movies. You gotta watch a lot of them.
Oh.
So, and the AFI really changed their mind and made Vertigo the best movie ever made instead of Citizen Kane. So that's another project. I just watched Rebecca this morning at like 2 in the morning, and it was really, really good. It cost $1 million for a man's film in 1940, and they spent it all on music and good actors, and it's really good.
So was it as in like $1 million back in those days that they spent for it?
Yeah, $1 million 1940 money.
And then that is huge.
Yeah, I looked it up. In 1940 was the first movie to break $4 million, and they were spending $1 million on a romance movie. There's no action or shooting or explosions or nothing. It's all spent on actors and on music rights.
I totally agree with you, though. Like, Alfred Hitchcock is, any of his movies should be right up there with, like, mandatory viewing. It is, if you are interested in movies, and even the slightest, you need to watch at least one Alfred Hitchcock movie. So,
I was surprised I'd seen. I said before it went live that I went down the list and his 8 most popular movies I've already seen.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah.
I know. I've still got a couple more I think I need to catch up on, but yeah, I love him. Love him to death. Liam, I saw you had your hand up next.
I've got to say that 2 films that come to mind instantaneously would be, one would be Wizard of Oz. You definitely need to watch that at least once. Unfortunately, here in the UK, it's played out every single year, a lot. So you kind of go a little bit tired of it,
every year at Easter or Christmas.
Yeah, America shows it every year in Easter in America.
Yeah, we see it pretty much every year, Easter and Christmas here as well. But I don't mind. I think, remember it from my childhood. It was one of the earliest productions I got to do, and I was the Scarecrow because I had amazing comic timing. Because I went to an all-girls school, so and just every time I watch it, it's like massive nostalgia flashback. Freaking love that shit. So good.
Are you a good witch?
I know the second one I've got to say would be Jungle Book as well. Like, you forget how old that film is sometimes.
Nothing but the bare necessities.
I think I agree. Like a lot of like classic Disneys, you don't really remember just how old they are until you go back and look at them. Like movies like Fantasia and
101
like the classic Cinderella. Yeah, they're all.
That was actually part of my.
Well, Nina, why don't we jump straight onto you next then, since we've stolen some of your thunder.
So yeah, a lot of mine is like classic Disney. I'm just like classic Disney is an era that must be watched because it's got so much. It built so much on what we know today, like CGI and the big animation is all built upon the back of all of those movies. But my others are like really theater movies, like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Streetcar Named Desire.
Yes! I love Streetcar Named Desire.
And my other one is one I'm surprised that hasn't been mentioned, but To Kill a Mockingbird.
It was on my list. Yeah,
that's on my list of classics that I don't like. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
We can't be friends anymore, Ray. We really can't.
I mean, Gregory Peck's acting in that is just the.
I think it's because I watched it in school, so that's the only memory I have of it is during English class, watching it 40 minutes at a time.
Well, I think most people's first introduction to that movie was at some point, like, it was either you were given the book to read and people were like, oh god, fuck reading, why don't go watch the movie, or you had a really cool English teacher that would just let you watch it in class as, like, study day.
Yeah.
Those were the best.
You-
But yeah, I
yeah, we
think
got to watch
definitely a
that.
lot of
We got to watch the '60s Romeo and Juliet nudity and all.
Yeah.
that 60s Romeo and Juliet, in my opinion, is still the best Romeo and Juliet.
Oh.
I mean, that is one that I definitely have on my list. Same with To Kill a Mockingbird. For me, the ultimate is Gone with the Wind. I freaking love
I have
the
never
shit
seen
out of that.
Gone with the Wind.
Oh, God, you have got to watch that movie. She is, like, Scarlett O'Hara is such an interesting character. You both hate her and love her at the same time. And I think Vivian Lee's performance in it was just badass. Like, she was a badass biatch. And she was a strong female character, but she didn't quite handle it in the right way. She was just a bit too bitchy. A lot of the time, but I mean, it was born out of necessity, and I mean, come on, the clothes alone make it worth watching.
But I actually have a fact about the 60s Romeo and Juliet real quick. The woman who played Juliet could not go to the premiere.
Was she not old enough?
Yeah, her own boobs were showing. It's a rated R movie, and she wasn't quite old enough.
Oh God, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
same thing with Brooke Shields in Pretty Baby. She was naked and she was 12 in that movie.
Yeah, so she couldn't go.
Yeah, wasn't allowed to go.
Yeah. I think so. I'll just one more like awesome classic movie I have, and then I'll jump on to you, Meta. For me is 12 Angry Men. I haven't seen it in a few years now because I've been trying to find a good copy of it that I want to keep. But I remember seeing it ages ago, and I love how so many of the great old and classic movies relied more on an amazing storyline and incredible acting and dialogue than all the flashy bells and whistles. And
I've seen all three versions of 12 Angry Men. The original, the newer one, Tony Shalhoub's in it. And there's a Russian Czech version that's really good, too.
Yay.
Courtney!
Yay, Miss Courtney made it. Hi, Courtney. We at the moment we're just talking about like the olden day classic movies that you personally think should be considered as mandatory watching. So we're just going to jump to Meta and have a think if you've got any, and then you can say hi as well when we come back to you.
Okay.
Meta, what ones have you got? I know you've got some good old classics.
Yeah, well, the thing is with me that when I went to high school, I guess, I had like a cinema type class, and we would watch really old movies. So like I have a list here of like really obscure old movies that I think is something that people should watch. But no matter what, on top of my list any day will always be The Sound of Music is a mandatory like must watch. I don't care. I don't even. If you hate musicals, you still need to watch it because it's just such a fantastic story, and it's just it's like on top of my list of everything.
I was actually in that for high school.
What did you play?
Just one of the people in the background, not any particular.
You weren't a fun trap kid.
Yeah, no, I just was there as for aesthetics.
He played a tree.
Essentially, that's what he said.
But like that's definitely on top of my list. And then I was also thinking, just when we were sitting here talking about it, Back to the Future. I'm actually not sure when that's from, but I'm also
80s.
80s.
Yeah, that's 80s, right?
80s.
Yeah.
No matter what, I still think like that's something that
Back
you
to the Future is still a classic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
classic. So that's why I think that you should watch it. But like other things that I have on my list here, like there's French movies and Italian movies. I have 2 German movies as well. But another one on the top of my list is The Third Man. I really like film noir, and I think that if you watch film noir, it's such a good genre of movies that I think it's something that's necessary to watch because it's not a genre that's really done anymore, and when it's done horribly. So I think that old school film noir pre-50s is the best type of movies out there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I'd
So-
say best, but I definitely think pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, well, maybe not the best, but it's like it's definitely on top of mind. Like I even like this is how weird my brain goes when I think about movies that you need to watch. I have a movie from 1902 that I think people should watch.
people made movies back then.
Cool.
Yeah,
1902.
it's oh, I'm gonna butcher this title. It's Le Voyage dans la Lune. It's the trip to the moon. It's basically
That
like a
sounds
French
fancy,
like
you know?
that is it is so old, but it's actually I like it because it's so impressive from
Yeah.
that age. And the fact that it's basically a science fiction movie in 1902.
People have been speculating about the future forever.
Yeah, there were Martians in it and shit. It was good. I think it's actually on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. I
What
think
movie is that? Sorry, I was watching the Preakness.
La Voyage dans la Lune. It's a trip to the moon.
From
I'll
like
look for it.
old school time.
Oh, no.
Right
Alan,
now.
I'm going to come to you in 2 seconds. Just sort of in our question and Q&A sort of section. So if you've got any questions as well for us, or any comments, be sure to sort of hit them out at us. Or if you're streaming us on YouTube, you can put them in there as well, and we'll see them. But Rhino Balls, who's there watching in the audience, so hello, just mentioned that he was pretty sure that the Godzilla movie in the 50s was actually referred to as Gojira in Japan.
Yeah,
So yay, technically, I'm not being racist. Woohoo! And also he mentioned Citizen Kane as well as a really good movie, and I completely 100% agree. That movie is just, oh my god, I want to go watch it again. I haven't seen it in a while. It's the problem, there's so many movies. It's like, how do you watch
How do you
them
pick?
all? Yeah, it's just, you just can't. Ellen, love, what about you? What have you got?
Well, see, this is where I kind of I break the mold of everything else, really. Other than the obvious, like Wizard of Oz, Sound of Music, and Disney, which pretty much Oz and Sound of Music was rammed down your throat at Christmas and Easter, and Disney you're raised on as a kid. This is where I admit that I can't honestly recall. I may be making glaring errors, but I can't honestly recall films that I've seen that are older than the 80s.
Have you seen Mad
I've
Max?
subjugated you to a lot of 80s films recently, but I would say that I'm a modern era classics kid. I'm a kid of the 80s, so the 80s.
Well, you had to seem like Star Wars, Rockies, or both 70s. Sorry.
Yeah,
Star
but
Wars-
isn't Rocky?
Yeah, Star Wars is 70s.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. See, that's what I mean. Timeline-wise, I'm not too sure. Is the Rockies? I thought the Rockies were early 80s, 81. See that kind of thing. But I'm more of a Star Trek fan, and I am aware that Star Trek original was 78.
Star Trek Originals was 60s.
60s. Oh, I stand correct. See what I mean?
There you go.
My timeline's skewed. Maybe it's because I visited them later on in life and didn't realise. But yeah, Star Trek then, whether it is Shatner's horrendous overacting, but I love him. You can't have a Star Trek film of that era without a Shatnerism.
Yeah. So-
Phaser 2, done.
The TV series Star Trek was from 1966 to 1969.
Yeah. Okay. See, so as I said, I'm not a first generation fan, so
Yeah.
I'm a TNG fan, but I do like Shatner in the films over the TV. But no, I'm blind to dates really. So I would say that the next stage, which would be soon to be classics, would be my bubble really. You know, the ones that I will hopefully touch upon in the coming moments or so. But
Yeah.
although the classics are classics,
Yeah, I actually had to look up some dates for some of the ones. And have you seen like Mad Max and Christopher
Nope.
Reeve's? What about Christopher Reeve's Superman? That's 70s.
Okay, no, yeah, I have seen Christopher Reeve's Superman. See, my
James-
my era is for me personally. I found the 70s were trying to be yuppie cheesy. The 80s were trying to be cheesy. If you're born in an era where, frankly, even American imitation cheese isn't really cheese, that's the era that I lived in, and I'm proud to be an 80s kid of.
Well, I mean, the big transition that happened with like movies from the 70s and the 80s really all stemmed upon the way the economy was then. Like during sort of like the mid to end of the 70s, especially in America, it was a very, very sort of like a dark economic era. They were really struggling then. And as soon as sort of the 80s hit, there was a big upswing in the economy. You know, there was that big, I think it was at like the Olympics or something when like USA beat Russia in the ice hockey, and it was kind of like this big upswing moment for like the whole economy. And then suddenly everything became about excess during that time. So that's why you see this big sort of transition between movies of the 70s and movies of the 80s, because it was very reflective of what was happening at the time. But I find it's really interesting sort of listening to the way everyone else talks about like the classics, and this is why I love the fact that we're doing this topic, because everyone's version of like what a classic movie is really different. Like, so, you know, for Alan, when we say the classics, he's like, well, classics, that's stuff from my childhood, whereas someone else may go, classics, well, that's all that shit that was in black and white before I was even born. So it's that really interesting dichotomy in what everybody views differently as a classic. Courtney, you did join us a wee bit late, so be sure to introduce yourself to everyone. But what are your takes on sort of like the olden day classics that you consider that should be mandatory watching for everyone?
Well, first of all, hey, it's Courtney on Twitter at Courtney Garrett, youtube.com/rhetoricalfoil. I'm finally black. Finally back. Okay. That's embarrassing. I think this is my first hangout in like a month, and I missed you guys so much. And look, I have red hair.
You have red hair. I want to know it.
That's awesome.
It's so pretty.
As far as the classics go, I am a person who, when you say classic, I think not necessarily black and white, but it definitely goes into that era, like the era of Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe. That's where my mind goes.
Yes.
Speaking of movies that people have to see, my favorite Marilyn movie is Some Like It Hot, and I think everybody needs to see that. Because
It was on my list as well.
Who doesn't love watching dudes dress up as women? Like, it's just like the American pastime, the international, worldwide pastime, right? Drag queens.
Drag queens.
Well,
Or you could just be from Scotland.
I don't know what you mean, good sir.
Another classic that I think that I really love is Roman Holiday. I know that like Audrey Hepburn's big thing was like Breakfast at Tiffany's, and I like Breakfast at Tiffany's, but I feel like Roman Holiday is so superior to that.
Roman Holiday. I watched Roman Holiday for the first time when I was sick, and my boyfriend lent it to me and like, you have to watch this movie.
Aww.
It's amazing.
It is.
And so I was sick one day, and I was like, I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything. So I watched it, and I was like, oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, I love Roman Holiday. It's such a good movie. But since we have started to merge onto it, what movies do you personally consider to be mandatory movie watching? Like, if anyone is sort of like, I need a good movie to watch, what things do you consider to be classics that everyone needs to watch? Oh gosh, Nina, we'll start with you.
I don't know if I would consider it a classic because it's really not old enough to be a classic at all yet. But if somebody's like, I need a movie to watch, Bottle Shock is my go-to movie every time. It's about this winery that is it's a California winery in the 1970s going up against the French wine, vintners who have been, making wine for hundreds upon hundreds of years, and they well, I can't spoil the ending, but
Well, it's a true story happened 40 years ago.
but yeah, it was a true story based 40 years ago. Things happen. It's very dramatic. The only part I hate about it is Chris Pine's wig. It's the worst.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I've seen that. It's a really good movie.
To put it in perspective for Kiwi, it's better. Ollie's island wig is better.
Oh. Actually, by the way, Nina, I think you and I are going to need to have a bit of an off-air chat about Arrow, but we'll save that for after the show because we're talking the classics. Meta, what about you? What things, and I know that you are going to have a list of movies that you consider to be mandatory movie watching.
Yeah, well, again, the thing is that a lot of these are pretty obscure. So the thing is, I think that people should watch it, but I know that people will watch it and absolutely hate it. So, but again, like on my list, I have Some Like It Hot as well as Courtney. It's a classic. Like it's just it's amazing. And The Sound of Music, The Third Man. I have Metropolis. I have a bunch of different things. I have a bunch of Hitchcock movies as well. But the one thing I really also have is movies by the German director Fritz Lang. Even though it's old school German, it's black and white, not really a lot of sound, and it's gonna sound like really artsy and hipsterish, but it's just those are fantastic movies because they are filmed so beautifully that you don't actually need any speaking. You just need to watch it and you can understand the meaning of it. So yeah, but on the top of my list has to be, no matter what anybody else says, it's The Sound of Music. It's just so dear to my heart that it is such a classic that you cannot miss it.
Yeah, I'm a lot like that when it comes to The Wizard of Oz. I mean, that movie, I love it so much, and I'm always surprised when I come across that odd one or two sort of like people that have never seen it before, and I'm like, how can you not have seen The Wizard of Oz? Meta! How could you not have seen The Wizard of Oz? All right, well, that definitely is, I consider it to be mandatory movie watching, and you need to go and see it because it was just amazing when it came out. And also, again, Gone with the Wind, I think, is a movie that everyone should watch. Because it was amazing when it came out, and it's still to this day, and my belief really holds up. But not just in like the old classic movies. I really believe that everyone needs to have seen Star Wars, and I know there are one or two people in movie clubs that haven't, and so I need to hurry up and set up a movie watching date with one of them, so that I can watch it because everyone needs to have seen like Star Wars. It's just.
I was going to say that.
It's a classic. It's just, oh, God. I mean, you can easily skip over episodes. Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 just,
No.
I mean, come on, we're moving like Strikes Back, for Pete's sake. So if you haven't seen it by now, my goodness. I'm sorry. Liam, what about you? What do you consider to be mandatory movie watching?
Well, I'm just going to rattle off a few names for you guys, see how you respond to them. E.T.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting. I know that's fairly recent, but yeah,
I've never seen it, but I've heard it's good.
Oh, you need to. It's really, really good. Dead Poets Society.
Yes. I like. Oh, Captain, my Captain.
I hate that poem.
Add that classics that I list.
I love the Family Guy spoof of that.
It was on yesterday.
Another one. I would say Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, I would agree with you.
Don't mind.
I know they're not like pre-80s or anything like that, but goddamn, you need to watch them.
Well, I mean, these ones aren't necessarily all your pre-80s movies. They're just the ones that you literally consider to be movies that, in your mind, are classics and everyone needs to have seen. And just on Dead Poets Society, I both super, super love that movie and also really hate it. Now, it's hard to say because you don't want to spoil anything for anyone who might not have seen it, but it's like you know, I get it. Shit was tough back then, and oh, you know, boo-hoo, you didn't get to do what you wanted. But don't be a pussy about it. Just wait a few more years. You'll be out of college on your own. You can do whatever the hell you want. So just be thinking of that, people, when you're watching that movie. If you haven't seen it yet, that was kind of like a bit stupid. But sorry,
I'm gonna
Liam.
rewatch it because I hated that movie.
I suggest rewatching it. But I just
the one watched in
under
school.
Liam. But back to you, Liam.
2 other movies as well if you're into Scotland. Braveheart and Train Stopping. Or Spotting, sorry. Stopping.
Train stopping. I want to watch that one. That's
It's,
McGregor jumping out in front of a train.
Yeah, pretty much. God. Where's my head today? I don't know. Nice. But yeah, definitely. Those 2 are 2 huge films for, you know, Scotland.
For Scotland. Yeah.
For Scotland.
Shit. Yes. For Scotland. Also, movies that I consider to be mandatory watching: Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
Man,
yeah.
I'm doing a really bad job of repping my country right now.
I wonder why.
I have yet to watch Lord of the Rings.
Oh, no. You got
Yeah,
to hide in the
I
corner.
watched the first one. That was it, and I didn't watch all of that.
Kiwi knows this. Because
Yeah.
I've told this story. I've yet to watch Lord of the Rings because for the longest time I couldn't get through the first hour of the first movie, which is all set up and all boring.
Me either. That's about as far
die.
as I got. It's like 9 hours long, and I couldn't sit there and waste my day.
It's not a waste. It is time that is valuably spent learning about amazing fantasy culture and awesomeness, and well worth it. Plus, it also saves you having to make a 12-hour flight to New Zealand, because watching Lord of the Rings back to back, you've pretty much seen our whole country.
Well, I will go get my Black Sheep DVD and watch that instead.
Oh, that movie is so good. I love that.
Lord of the Rings, I think, was awesome. The Hobbit one was too slow for me, and I stopped it like maybe halfway through, and I still have to finish watching the first Hobbit before I watch the second Hobbit.
You do. The second, I agree. The first Hobbit movie was a little bit slow. And I really loved the first Hobbit movie, but I didn't realize how much I thought it was okay until I watched the second one, and I'm like, oh no, I love the second one. I only liked the first one. But since we're already on you, Backsawn, what about you? What movies do you consider to be mandatory watching?
I'm going to touch a little bit on the topic we were talking about previously also, which is going to tie into this. I'm going to be kind of like a typical guy with regards to my movie list. A lot of the action heroes that are kind of old these days got their starts in the 60s and 70s, like Dr. No for Sean Connery, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, we got Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry, Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon. These are all movies that I'm considering like must-watch movies. Oh, and Aliens, Sigourney Weaver. Those are all must-watch movies, and a lot of the action heroes today that are getting kind of on the old side got their start around that time and era.
I finally played it. If we were to all, because it's as we were all talking about our different must-see movie watches, we're like, oh shit, yes, this one. So if we were to collectively put together a list of what we deem to be the definitive must-watch movie list, we might as well just all camp out at home for the next 10 years, because I don't think any of us would be going anywhere, because we'd just be watching a crap ton of movies. Courtney.
Well, Alan, I think Alan had his hand up before I did.
Did he? Forgive me, dear sweet Ellen. Off you go.
Thank you. Touching upon films that I frankly can't be without. Mine are a bit newer, but still old compared to most of you in here. So yeah. Back to the Future, the trilogy, because frankly, yes.
Yeah.
Lion King, because I think that's one of my all-time favourite Disney movies. Hook, because you have to have Robin Williams. Nightmare on Elm Street, because without that I wouldn't have got into horror films. I love Wes Craven. I love Robert Englund, and without Robert Englund, there wouldn't have been a Freddy Krueger for your nightmares. And my all-time ultimate favourite movie, which spawned so many careers, Interview with a Vampire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you've got
Yes. That movie was
you've got
so good.
Tom Cruise in there. You've got Kirsten. Is it Kirsten Dunst? Is a really fucking
Yes.
Yeah.
really fucking young kid. I loved that film. I loved it before. As a kid, I didn't really take stock in actors. I'm a very bad typecaster, so if I've seen you in one film and you've made a really good impression on me, you are that character. So
Yeah.
Brad Pitt was Louis until Fight Club, because that's a completely different view of the same person. Because Louis, with the wonderful long hair, compared to Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden, completely different. But that film, I saw that film before I understood actors and things, so that the character stuck in my head. I could quote that film inside and out. It was one of the reasons for years I used to roleplay Vampire the Masquerade. It's the reason why I read Anne Rice books, and it's kind of the reason why slowly over time I've come back to finding, through I'd much like to point out, thanks to Nina, whether she realises it or not, I've found the Vlog Brothers through Nerd Factor, and I've recently quite happily inducted myself into Nerdfighteria. So it's a weird giant circle. But yes, without some of these films, I wouldn't have touched upon other things and other authors and other films. And yeah, if you haven't seen any of those, go and check them out. If you haven't seen Interview with a Vampire and you're a girl, then you'll love them for pure dick factor, I guess. But it's an amazing film, and it's really acted well, and it proves that you don't need 3 hours to rape a book, and it also proves that you can adapt a book that is a vampire book without them being twinkly emo pieces of shit.
Well, yes, they are that in the book as well.
Yeah. But I think I really agree with you on Interview with the Vampire, and it wasn't until, because I own it on DVD as well, I'd seen it so many times, I used it for one of my sixth form media studies assignments as well, because the dramatic use of music in it, it was just so good. And it wasn't until you mentioned it that I sort of started thinking about it, and I remember at the time when they were casting it, like Tom Cruise, everyone was like, what the fuck, he is not Lestat. Yet now that I've seen it, I can't really picture anyone else playing him. Like, I know Stuart Townsend played him when they did
Queen of the
yeah, Queen of the Damned, and I'm just like,
they butcher 3 books into one, and fuck, not only the book of the stat, but they touch on Merrick, and that was once again, that was they went, Interview with the Vampire was so amazing, why don't we try and cash in but see, if you can cram one really good book into a really good film, granted they did touch upon the Vampire Lestat within that as well, but I don't read much for reference, so the fact that I'm quoting book and film is a miracle. The only other film that the only other book that I've read, in inverted commas, is something that Meta loves dearly, and so for me, that's the only book to film kind of adaptation I can quote on. But that proves that you can take 1 and a bit books and make 1 film, rather than 1 book that big and make 3 Mr. Hobbit, right?
Hey, what he is doing is he is pulling not only from the book, but also from all the appendices, because it's the last time he's going to Middle Earth. But, see, this is why I really love this question. When you talk about what movies you consider to be mandatory movies to watch, they're movies that obviously mean a lot to you. They're movies that you've got a really big invested sort of process within. And that's why it's the type of movie that you can then sit there and talk about for hours on end in order to convince someone else that, yes, this movie is the movie to watch. So, yeah. But anyway, Courtney, what about you? I want to know what everyone else's movies are.
A couple of my must-watches stem from my absolute love of horror movies that are also comedies. I feel like I've talked about both these before, so Scream, obviously, and Cabin in the Woods. More recently, I think it's a beautiful, wonderful movie. I've bullied people into watching it, and they have agreed with me that it's great. Safety Not Guaranteed.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah, I
love the
like
message
that.
of
Yeah, I
that
like
movie
that
so much. It was just like so sweet, even though it was like kind of sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. Well, sci-fi. It was really all about like having somebody next to you who believes in you. It's just like, oh, such a beautiful story. And obviously Disney things. Every Disney movie ever, preferably.
Every Disney thing.
But if I had to pick one, Mulan, because she was a badass. And Sean Yu is the most terrifying Disney villain of all time. I don't know how people like forget about him. Everybody's like, oh well, Gaston's so scary because he's a real guy, and I'm like, so is Sean Yu.
Yeah, he was
me.
Yes, but Gaston is the nice guy that everyone has to deal with.
Yeah, but I'd be way more terrified of Sean Yu than Gaston.
Actually,
Gaston's just a douche.
I'd have to say that Darth Vader is the scariest Disney villain.
Yeah.
Right?
Clearly, the rapier wit of Ray William Johnson, because he's part of Maker and Disney owned them, right? Fucking abominate! Don't get me.
Yes, Alan,
don't start.
Topic, Alan. That's not the topic.
That stuff isn't scary.
Or of
Fiction
course,
French people are never scary.
fucking Mickey
Alan,
Mouse.
Alan,
Alan, I'm gonna punch you in the face.
what is he talking?
You
Where
be,
the hell did this
you be
Hangout
careful
go?
when you talk about Disney, first of all. Not around me.
There's that
And
whole
second of
video
all, Courtney
explaining
was still talking. Courtney was still talking.
I have one more thing. One last must-see, Monty Python, Holy Grail.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
There you go.
I love
Drop the
that.
mic, get out of the dish.
Yeah, I had a
That sounds better.
teacher. Sorry.
Is it me?
It is you, Mina. Yeah.
Fantastic. I just have three.
Three.
The first one, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know, even if you just like my faves are obviously the first and the third one, but all of them, it's just they're fantastic. Another one is actually an Indian movie. It's Devdas. It is one of the most beautiful love stories of all time, and I think that if you want to watch anything from Bollywood, you need to watch Devdas. It is absolutely incredible. And the last one I have is Doctor Strangelove. And yeah.
Ooh, yeah. That's way up.
But yeah, it's like I got introduced to it by my dad. He introduces me to a lot of these movies, and he couldn't understand why I hadn't watched it before. He basically sat for 5 minutes just staring at me, going, "Meta, what? What?" So that's when you know that you need to watch a movie.
Dude, props to your dad for having some badass movie taste then, totally.
Yeah.
Because didn't he also get you into the Blues Brothers? Did he get you
Oh
into
yeah,
that?
my dad is like everything in Snatch and Fight Club, and he's badass. He has like a movie collection that would blow anyone's mind.
Yeah, your dad.
Classic.
I love him already. I
Yes.
totally love him.
Hey, it's my dad.
Okay, I mean, not in that way.
Married, and you are married too.
Not in that way. I just love his movie taste. Ray, what about you? Save me from apparently looking like a whore.
First, I wanted to say, as far as any price on the Holy Grail goes, I had an English teacher in 12th grade that said if people watch that movie and don't laugh, they shouldn't be able to have children.
Okay. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but
It's a good benchmark, nothing else. Anyways, I like the movies. I'm a much bigger fan of Jeffrey and Michael Myers. I like the Jason movies. The first two stink, but after that they start to get good. And the Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator and yeah, you didn't mention Arnold in your watch the because his first film is Hercules in New York, and that movie blows.
Yeah. I did like him as Conan though. So.
Yeah, Conan
Pretty good.
is the best Conan.
Although, well, see, I'm probably in the minority, but I really liked the Jason Momoa Conan
liked
movie.
it as well. I
Oh.
liked it a lot as well. He was
Well, no,
cool.
because I liked it because they took a lot more sort of canon from the graphic novel type stuff as opposed to just I'm going to stand around flexing and stuff.
You're not supposed to understand
the fact that
Conan.
he was really pretty. It has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with the fact that
Nothing, obviously.
nothing to do with the fact that he
Nope.
is absolutely gorgeous. In it. Yeah.
No child,
it
my
has
father.
everything to do with the fact that it was actually quite a good movie. Okay, so we're going to wrap up and go into the next question shortly. So, Nina, I don't think I've been to you yet with this question, have I?
Okay, I've got a bunch, so I'm just going to rattle off names really quickly. Breakfast Club, a German movie called Das Tunnel, Ghostbusters, Thomas Crown Affair, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Hunt for the Red October, Independence Day, Moulin Rouge, Chicago, and Cabaret.
Okay, there is not a single movie on there that I disagreed with, so total props to Nina for that one.
Real quick, I'd be remiss to if I forgot to say Mad Max. Mel Gibson starts. I'd fail as a geek without mentioning that, considering this game is kind of based on the Mad Max type movie in the Mad Max Under the Thunderdome.
Yes. Oh, and Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, and movies. Oh God! See, there's just so many. This list could go on forever.
So many good.
Everyone have it. We
really
film we like ever.
Yeah, pretty much. So in that case, I think we're probably going to be best then, because this might hopefully be a slightly shorter list of cult classic movies that people expected you to love, but you didn't actually enjoy. I'm assuming everyone's got at least one or two of those. Meta, start us off, love.
We talked about this last week, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Fucking hate that shit, and it's apparently one of the best movies out there.
I told you, watch Silent Running with Bruce Dern instead.
Yeah. Ray, what about you? What cult classic? Because you're kind of famous for not liking movies.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a big
Well,
one.
I told you, didn't like To Kill a Mockingbird. And here's the one that you're gonna hate. I hate Forrest Gump. I hate that movie
I don't
so
like Forrest Gump.
Hey,
I don't like
everybody
Forrest
loves
Gump.
that movie. Everybody's favorite movie, and I hate that movie.
I mean, from one perspective, I can kind of see it kind of making fun of disabled people, but at the same time, I know it's a classic for a reason. But it's which is why it kind of just bothers me also. But I'm kind of mixed feelings about it.
It's very ableist, that's very true.
Yeah, someone else might remember what it was now. Another I watched in school, another based on a watched in school, other than talking about. Someone mentioned another, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, if during class,
Somebody's phone.
Yeah, whose phone?
No, that's all right. Maxon's muted himself. Wow. Don't like Forrest Gump. I mean, I can kind of, on the one hand, sort of see that. I mean, on the one hand, it is quite funny of oh, this one person, Forrest Gump, is there for all these big, major events that happen throughout life, and he met all these famous people, and isn't that ironic and funny? And he created the smiley face T-shirt type thing. But that's what makes it so adorable. The fact that it's kind of unbelievable.
So that it's just so unbelievable. Every event and no one's ever. He's a complete stranger to everyone. He's the most famous person on the planet, but no one's ever heard of him.
Yeah, true. Makes sense. Courtney, what about you? What movie were you expected to love that you didn't?
Okay, first I have to say, don't hate me, everybody, but I have tried to watch this movie 2 or 3 times and could not get through it. Moulin Rouge.
Fuck you.
I'm sorry, I know. You said it was one of your... I just couldn't do it. It's just not my style. I don't know.
You know what? I understand that.
I don't know. It was just...
No.
Yeah, I can understand, it was beautiful. It was just too much for me. like so much was happening, and maybe it got better through the movie, and I just couldn't get through the first.
Did you at least
half
make it
hour.
to like La Tango de Roxanne? Like
Oh my
that?
god, that's
That is
I
one
did.
of
no return.
Oh God,
I
that
think
that
I think I did, and then I turned away.
Oh god,
Oh.
no. Well, I can
Sorry.
see that happening because any Baz Luhrmann movie is quite overwhelming. It's like a
Yeah.
sensory overload. So
I
I guess I can understand it because it is also at a lot of points very overacted. I mean, the Duke is horrible. You can't but
Yeah,
hate him.
I think that's my
And-
problem with it.
The Duke
Yeah.
is almost a cartoon villain.
He really
Exactly,
is.
the mustache and everything, and you know, a lot of the characters are just really out there. So if you're not going into the movie with the mindset that this is going to be like an explosion of weirdness, I can understand why you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, it's just a little too over the top for me, and I understand the appeal of that, and it's great if other people like it. It's just a little too much for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you need to be either like really drunk or really high to fully enjoy and embrace a Baz Luhrmann movie.
I will work on that right now.
Yeah, pop some
That's the one with
LSD.
Ewan McGregor,
before you
right?
watch it.
Yep.
Yes.
I got this.
Well,
So
that's
good.
exactly what lots of things that you will do. Just completely overwhelm you. So it's not surprising.
He is fantastic in that
Are
movie.
we just gloating about our bottles now?
Yeah.
Cheer, Courtney.
Would I have a hardcore cup of tea
Cheers.
that actually like the
Irish
size
tea?
of my. Yeah, we'll say it's Irish. Liam, what about you? You had your hand up, didn't you? Or did I just skip right past you?
Yeah. A lot of people thought I would love the Clerks. I did not like Clerks at all.
One or two?
One. I didn't give two a chance.
Okay.
I can
I
see
I didn't
that.
even finish
I-
number one.
It's not for
I have a
everyone.
hard time getting through Clerks 1.
I really like that movie. I'm actually really struggling to answer this movie. I've been trying to think of like what movies I really didn't like, and
It took me forever to figure out which one I dislike so much that everyone expected me to have two. So I'm right in your boat, but I know which one.
yeah, go for it.
A Christmas Story.
No,
I
would
absolutely-
mention that must see.
I absolutely despise A Christmas Story. I think it's so stupid. It's the worst.
It is
For
stupid,
me.
and I've seen it about 40 times, and actually about 10 times a year on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. There's like
But
one
it's
or
so
two channels that play it for 24 hours straight, and I'm like, that's good for some people. It's not good for me.
Yeah, I think at first I kind of thought maybe I felt a little bit like that with like It's a Wonderful Life, and or like Old Yeller. But I think the only reason why I don't like Old Yeller is because of the bit at the end, because it is super heartbreaking. Like everybody knows, like I can handle when like people get their heads chopped off and die in horrible ways. I laugh my ass off and think that's hilarious. But do anything with an animal, like oh my God, Marley and Me.
Oh no.
Holy shit!
no.
I am crying like a little bitch, literally, the second I start watching it because I know what's coming. And so, but I don't know if I would necessarily say that was movies that I didn't enjoy. It's just that little specific bit usually going to be at the end of the movie that I know is coming, so I just stop watching it before that point. Alan, what about you?
Don't watch all the.
Yeah, I'll do a Phoebe and stop it at the end. So apparently Old Yeller is like the loveliest movie ever because I don't see the ending.
I'm kind of an overplay hater. So this one's a rather big one. But Great Escape, it's absolutely slayed in this country. Every Christmas you have to watch The Great Escape, whether it's Steve McQueen or whatever McQueen digging through a hole and fucking up. I don't care. There's a small part of me that actually wants me to find him get caught in the tunnel and die. I don't care about you anymore. I don't. Just jump and completely miss it and snap your neck. That would be brilliant. And E.T., right? E.T.'s another thing that is overplayed chronically. But having said that, there were two other films that would have gone into the same category about 10 years ago, and that is Masters of the Universe.
That was
But I'd
that is a
like to say
terrific movie.
would have. I've not seen that in 10 years or so. And Willow for the same reason. But because I've not seen them, for so long, I'd love to go back and watch them. But because of over
They're
repeating,
poorly made movies, but they're
I would now say I would like to see Willow. I would like to see Master of the Universe, but I never wanted to see another Shrek film ever. Every Easter, every bank holiday, at Christmas, they're on fucking marathon. I don't. Why was there 5 of the bastards? Plus spin-offs, plus Christmas special, plus puts in I don't care. Just no. Right? Anybody else notice that effectively there's genetic manipulation between donkey dinosaurs, but nobody cares about that. But you burn books in fucking Texas because they've got man walks on Earth, the world is flat. No. Anyway,
I've got to
Hey,
say,
I'm
of
from
all the
Texas.
films you're going to rant about, I'm surprised that it's Shrek.
I still want to know how Donkey and Dragon had a kid.
clearly,
I'm sure there's a for it somewhere. You can go
Okay,
to
there
that
is
now.
a very strong possibility, especially with Alan in on this
See,
chat, that it's
rock diving.
something about weird bestiality sex. So I'm going to straight over to Courtney now before we even go there, because this is not that type of hangout.
Very quickly, I forgot one of my must-watches, and I'm so embarrassed because this is a movie I watch around Christmas season. Like, I watch it, my family typically watches it immediately after Thanksgiving dinner, and then we watch it at least once a week until Christmas. Christmas Vacation.
not her.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Don't
We
know.
have it in a house.
Griswold family.
Never seen it.
What? I am.
Oh, the Griswold
Blanking
is it
every-
like the National Lampoon?
Yeah, National Lampoon.
Yeah.
Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Okay, I was just like, why is there silence happening?
that.
I think because I think it was called something different out here. Like it was only called like National Lampoons. Because I know they had the European Vacation one, but yeah, but it was called something slightly different out here. Slightly different. Becksorn.
No, I know I'm gonna get shit for this, but I did not like old Jim Carrey, like Pet Detective. That was one that people wanted me to see and really enjoy, but it's like I was not into that particular type of humor. His like body humor, just the way he does it, just vibed me wrong in terms of like the old Jim Carrey style of doing things with Pet Detective. So yeah, I was not a fan of those type of movies.
Oh, see, that kind of hurts me because it was because of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective that I was kind of like a bit of a fan of the Miami Dolphins because there was a dolphin in it, and I was like, "Yay, Miami Dolphins!" And then I started watching so yeah, my massive love of American football now, fucking yay, go Packers, all stems from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Let's go Buffalo.
Yes, but no, I'm thinking though in the future we will probably have a topic on sport movies because I think sports movies are frickin' sweet as. But it's nice we are slowly running out of time. We've still got 2 more questions to get through, so I'm going to push us on to the next one.
Okay.
And then what is it about certain movies that make them must-see movies or cult classics? What is it about a movie that can give it that cult classic status?
A film that.
Ooh, deep
Sorry,
philosophy.
can I go?
Yeah, go for it, Liv.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I think it's a film that for cult classic it's something that people don't expect to be that huge, or it's not. It's an underdog. I think normally that is just fantastic. I personally think. What would you guys think?
Yeah.
Definitely underdog movies. Definitely movies that have like a select audience, where it's like a particular niche of group would appreciate, but not other people. Say like Gremlins, for instance. Gremlins is a cult classic. Not everyone will care for it. A particular group might. Or Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a cult classic because it has a very select target audience. So I think that also falls into play with what a cult classic is.
Yeah, I was going to say Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I was talking about that one last night. It's sometimes I think some of the really best cult classics are the ones that are cult classics because they are so bad that they're good, but only because you're there watching them to mock them, and that's what kind of gives it that cult classic status. Ray?
Yeah, like we said, the niche movies where they do things different that you can't really get away with in high budget things. Also, when people there's a good story behind a movie. Like when people rent a camera and make a movie for a couple of $1,000, something like Primer, that was made for $1,000 in a storage unit.
Well, the first Paranormal Activity movie as well. That was like made on like a bit of a shoestring budget, and nobody really knew what it was about, and it spawned a bunch of
single-room movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them single-location movies end up being classics too.
Yeah. Alan?
I'd say time helps films generate a rose-tinted glasses effect. I mean, some films may not specifically stand out in the era that they are made in, but over time, because of our generation watching them, we then look back. Like the Back to the Future series. They did 3. All of them are very well written. The first one was written separately to the other 2, and they were knitted very cleverly. It was the same writing team. It was the same director. It was made perfectly for the perfect jigsaw, right? It was also a twist on an existing formula. I was able to look at time travel, and instead of doing the normal routine of, I want to go back and change my life, and this goes wrong. It was a twist with a new element. So obviously the car and the comedy element, and as long as you can find a genre and twist it, like I honestly believe Pirates of the Caribbean will go down as films that brought back the pirate genre, but they did it properly, because people trying to do the pirate genre following are landing on their arse. They do suggest that the pirate genre is dead unless it's created with a decent brand. The closest that I've seen to it was, ironically, the Three Musketeers twist that was recently done with Orlando Bloom as the bad guy.
No.
And you've got, obviously, the 3 plus D'Artagnan. You can't look at that and not tell me that is Pirates of the Caribbean for the Musketeers with flying boats.
It totally is a review of it.
So horrible.
By scene.
It felt like they were just trying to more take what was really good about not the original Three Musketeers, the one, I think it was like the 90s that it came out, and it had like Charlie Sheen and Oliver Platt, Kiefer Sutherland, Chris O'Donnell, Paul McGann and stuff. That movie was freaking awesome because they took a really comedic approach to the Three Musketeers, and I feel like they were trying to recapture that again, but just with some more flashy CGI.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think with the question though, it's not.
I can't see that being so bad that it becomes a cult.
No.
I think as long as you can be the first one to a genre that spawns others, like Nightmare on Elm Street spawned other cheesy slashers, like you had Back to the Future spawning that trilogy because everyone needed to knit them together. If you can be the pioneer and do it correctly, then you stand the chance of being that legend. Like Saw made Gorefest clever.
Yeah.
Forget the other 5 or 6 or 7. The first one, Hostel, once again, gore for gore's sake. Once again, this is horror film based, but you won't forget Hostel or Final Destination, but you will forget the 20 billion that came after it.
That came out around about the same time. But yeah, I mean, you've actually hit on a really, really good point. It's the, if you're the first to a specific genre, or if you're the first, like, say, director or writer or producer. So I want to bring up Joss Whedon, and that pretty much anything Joss Whedon touches sort of becomes like a cult classic, because he started it off way back with Buffy, and he's constantly doing that again, and he's now cemented himself as like a cult classic director and writer, because he understands that element. But I mean, it's also not just what it is about certain movies that make them cult classics. It's also about what makes them your own personal must-see movies, because those are usually two different things. I mean, I know for me, something that's a must-see movie for me is something that usually hits like an emotional point for me at a specific point in my life, and that's why it will stick with me. That's why Up in the Air, and not just because it has George Clooney in it. I know you guys all think I only watch movies that have George Clooney in it because of him, but that movie came out not long after I had left my job and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was having sort of like a bit of a, momentary crisis of career, and it was at that same time that movie came out, and I went and saw it, and it hit a very emotional point for me and a very philosophical point at the same time. And now it's kind of like that movie I constantly go back to whenever I feel like I need to just sort of reinvigorate myself in my career and sort of remember what it is that I'm pushing and striving for. And that's one of those things that makes a movie a must-see for me, is something that can connect with you more than just I'm escaping my life for a couple of hours to watch a movie. It gives you something more. So,
George Clooney's in it.
Oh, George Clooney's in it, yes. There you go. I only watch movies because they have George Clooney in them. Meta.
Well, I was just thinking that what I think sometimes makes movies like a cult classic, something that you need to watch, is either that, well, obviously this is becoming more and more difficult, but the story is something new, something you haven't seen before, or something really, really interesting, or something with a twist. I think that makes something a cult classic. But another thing would be a movie that has a totally new look. If you know, well, I was thinking Sin City, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that it's based on a comic book, right? Yeah. So they, instead of just going for the normal movie feel, they went for the comic book feel in a movie, which was something very, very new, which is why I think that style of making movies at the time that it really came out, and with a lot of the other movies coming out at that time, makes that a cult classic, because it separates itself so much from the other types of movies that were being made. So I think that if it separates either with the way that it's presented or the story that it's telling, that's what it's going to make something different and stand out and be a cult classic.
Yeah, I think you and Ellen really summed it up. It's that it's a movie that comes out that really sets itself apart from what is happening at that time, or that you're kind of like the first in that genre to do it. Yeah, and I think actually another sort of like director and writer that has kind of that same status as Joss Whedon was John Hughes. You know, when a lot of his movies were coming out, they were very encapsulating what was happening at that time, and they sort of were a bit different from what was happening with other movies, and that's why a lot of his movies kind of get that sort of cult classic must-see status. Ray, sort of last one before we go on to the last question, because we're running short on time, and I really want to get to this last question before we go.
Also, movies that build conversations about their universe.
Yeah.
Stuff. I mean, we're going to talk about Donnie Darko. We're all going to review that. There's so many explaining what one's opinion, and Inception. That's why that movie is going to be a classic one day, because it builds conversation behind the universe and what was really going on and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely movies that build conversation and like really spark conversation. A lot of movies that do that are ones that have like really unexpected twists. You know, things like The Sixth Sense. When that came out, really, really unexpected twist for most people. There were some people who kind of obviously figured it out quite early on, but there were, you know, for the most part, people didn't know what was going to happen, and having that unexpected twist is what kind of gave it that must-see status for everyone else. But so for our last question before we wrap up today, is since, you know, we are a movie club, we're watching a lot of newer movies as well as old classics. It's about what movies that we think.
Love you.
Other than sneezing, what like recent movies, the ones that have come out like this millennium, so from 2000 onwards, do we actually think are going to be like the next generation's cult classic movies, like the ones that they look back on and go, man, this old person movie is like still really good now?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say I've not seen it, but the buzz, the way that YouTube has exploded, it's Frozen. This is the first Disney film, in my opinion, that's really in the last few years. Don't kill me, Courtney. In the last 10 years or so, under the new type of animation that has really exploded. I mean, Shrek, I feel, was forced down our throats. That's DreamWorks, that's not Disney.
That's DreamWorks, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is the first one that I think's really popped, and it's grabbed every generation, because my goddaughter, I'm looking at the wall that you can't fucking see. Go and check my videos, bottom right-hand corner, I'm hugging a little girl in a christening dress. That's not creepy.
Oh.
Also on that.
She was singing to her daddy, let's go build a snowman.
Do you want to build
You
a
want to
snowman?
build a snowman.
On that topic,
over and a pure sign of anything.
One at a time, people. One at a time.
Spin-offs, because there is dubstep versions of that on YouTube. There's censored versions that supposedly sounds like, do you want to go and inappropriately touch up a snowman? It's amazing, and I think the fact that it has gained such a huge pop means that will be this generation's Snow White, or
Alan, I 100% agree with you on that point, because not only has it really captured people's, and I still haven't seen it, but I'm bloody going to have to go and watch it now, because it's going to be in the next season of Once Upon a Time. They introduced it in the last few minutes of the finale, and the fact that, you know, this movie that has sort of gone across all these different generations is now not only having, like, you know, spreading across YouTube and different things like what you mentioned with the dubstep, but that it's now influencing other TV shows as well. That is kind of like a big key indicator that it's got a lot more longevity than just, you know, it's run at the movies and then the DVDs and stuff to come afterwards. Baxorn, I feel like you...
on the topic of the YouTube popular made movies, we have to mention Sharknado, obviously, as we would not have heard of Sharknado if it were not for YouTube, which is now a cult classic, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a review of it myself on my YouTube page about just how campy cheesy it does it real good in that campy cheesy sense, basically replacing zombies with sharks and that survival type aspect. And yeah, if it wasn't for YouTube, no one would have ever heard of it. So, but the other thing that the other thing that I was going to say, movies that are going to be cult classics. Thanks to Mr. Allen, we watched Iron Man recently, and I think a lot of the superhero type movies are going to be cult classics in the next 10, 15 type years, especially with that resurgence of superhero movies and actually being able to take them seriously as opposed to the silly superheroes, say like the old Captain America 80s movies, which is also a cult classic, which I suggest people watch, the old campy Captain America movie.
I agree.
Now built a narrative between them. that they've actually gone back and gone, okay, well, this is Hulk, this is blah blah blah. That's crammed them all into a Marvel. Once again, they've deliberately written the way forward. Is that the best way you can create a longevity?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily say that they've built them though to be a cult classic, and I don't know if they will. I think it's more that it's like what Alan said. They've written them and built them in a way to have longevity, so that it will just continue to keep running, as opposed to sort of. I mean, it's got to reach an end point at some point in time, and then it's whether or not. How do you then look back and go, one of these movies is kind of what you would call the cult classic and the must-see movie, because you have to look at them as a whole entire package. But yeah, I agree with you on Sharknado. I was talking to my husband about it last night, and he was like, "What? Fuck no, that movie's shit." And I'm like, "Exactly. It is the next generation's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It is that movie that is so shit that's why you continue to watch it."
The second and third one. I'm ready.
Yeah, I can't believe they're making more of them, and it'll be like some of those other cheesy movies where it's like
and it's called Sharknado.
No, it's called Sharknado 2, the second one.
Oh, that's right, the second one. Yeah.
That is so well done.
And they've already agreed on. I don't know what the name of that one's going to be, but it's going to be called the third.
Yeah. I want to mention not a serious movie, but a movie that I think just on its own merit holds up and is kind of going to be one of those movies that people look back at, is actually The Hangover for future generations. Like, if you take away the sequels that were kind of average and shit, the first one on its own took this generation's it's this generation's sort of like party, sort of alcohol-fueled craziness, and did it well. Because then you saw that they tried to do it with a lot of other movies afterwards, and probably Bridesmaids, I think, is another one, because that then again launched that sort of whole genre of, okay, females are allowed to be dirty and disgusting and do stupid, ridiculous things. We're not all, it's not all let's just sit around and talk about guys in a movie like Sex and the City and stuff. So that kind of launched that. So I would pick The Hangover and Bridesmaid, as well as Sharknado, would be my future classics for the next generation. Meta.
I have a bunch of different ones, but I want to just keep going a bit of what you guys said with the fact that we are living in like nerd heaven right now with all the nerdy movies, the Marvel movies coming out. A bunch of these will no doubt end up as cult classics. Like, we've been talking a lot of times like about old school Batman, like which Batman is our favorites, and I think that is going to continue, and the newer movies will be part of that. The Avengers as well, and Guardians of the Galaxy is now coming up. Like, all of these nerd movies will be cult classics and will be something that our kids and the kids before are probably going to watch and discuss as well.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with it. Those are the ones that become cult classics, are the nerd movies.
It's the ones that we remember as well from watching from way back when. So another thing I was actually thinking was Mean Girls, because I feel like it's gonna be the Clueless of our time, but I don't know, because
I think it already is.
It is basically.
Yeah, it's just celebrated 10 years, hasn't it? It was like only a few
10 years.
Fine Bros did the teens react to it, and like all the 12-year-olds can
You go blame
quote it
Coco.
word for word.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that it's a movie that will still be able to continue on, because it's funny, it's well done, and it's not it is kind of cheesy, but it's something that we can survive, and I think it'll be a cult classic. Another one, I'm almost done, I swear, is basically anything that Christopher Nolan touches. I'm saying Batman trilogy and Inception. Inception will probably end up a cult classic, I think, because there was a lot of discussion about it when it came out. I feel like it's going to be something that could be.
I don't
really...
think it'll be a cult classic. I think it will be a classic. Period.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good point.
The thing is, when I say cult classic, language barrier. I just mean it's going to be classic. It's going to be discussed and it's going to be watched, and it's not going to be something that'll be forgotten in like the next 5 years. It's definitely going to be something big. And then, because I have to talk about it before we end the hangout, 50 Shades of Grey. Yay! We met the quota.
That is brilliant. We have met all of our quotas then today. We've talked about George Clooney. We've talked about 50 Shades of Grey. I that right there.
I mean,
no, go ahead and talk about the Matrix.
Yeah, I don't even talk. That's good. We can end.
No. We need to talk more about it, but I will leave it to the next person. So yeah.
Ray.
A TV show, but Walking Dead is gonna. I mean, people are always gonna zombie.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I don't even watch it because I missed so much of it. But.
If we're gonna talk TV shows, then I think one that we need to talk about is Breaking Bad. I mean, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say Breaking Bad, and I was gonna say Inception, but that was already said.
Or How I Met Your Mother. Actually, that could be like the Friends of,
It is. It actually really is. I think How I Met Your Mother is the Friends of this era, because when you look at it, Friends was actually a really freaking long time ago. Like at least, 20 years ago?
I still watch Friends.
God, I'm old.
Friends is on in classics now. No, Nickelodeon shows them old sitcoms like Cheers and all that stuff. Now they Friends at 2 in the morning.
Oh,
it's
God,
all been declared a classic sitcom that they show to people, insomniacs and drunks every morning.
Makes you feel so old. Alan and then Nina, last ones on this topic, and then we're going to look at someone else.
Okay. Now, see, once again, touching upon my horror background, being an 80s kid, I think this generation's must remember that there's no way that you can't. I looked back and I remembered the banned classics of The Exorcist and things like that. This generation's banned movie would be The Human Centipede. Unfortunately, it has spawned a sequel, but yeah, look, The Faces alone has immediately gone and stay. You won't forget it, and just like the generations of The Exorcist, they didn't forget that. So you're likely to hear it in infamy as a kid when you're older. Second, I agree. Any reboot of the new generation of the gritty versions of superhero from Nolan, and I would go out and put my neck on the line and say, I like reboots that J.J. Abrams have done. Me being a Trek fan, I do love the twisted timeline versions of Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness, and I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I am intrigued by what J.J. Abrams will do to Star Wars.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that.
It'll be either really, really good or really bad.
Right here.
My top gripe of the my top gripe of the Star Trek movies though is just the overuse of the lens flares in the first two movies.
I loved them. You can never have too many. Take a shot every time you see one.
How can you have a J.J. Abrams film without lens flares? It would be like having a Joss Whedon film without any member of the previous, who? The Joss Whedon kind of Whedonite empire.
The Whedonite family.
That he's going to go through an entire Whedonite pre-planned film and not go, I could so clearly sneak in Nathan Fillion here. Just a little cameo, just a little bit. I'll just show his wang on camera for 7 seconds, right? I'm surprised he didn't squeeze anyone at all into Marvel's Avengers Assemble. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Told him not to.
The entire movie, or are we talking the core Avengers? Because there was a Whedon family member in the movie The Avengers.
Was there?
Yeah, he didn't have a big part, but he was Victor on Dollhouse, and he was a cop in the Avengers.
Yeah.
He was the one like setting up the barricades.
Blair, but
And I'm sure wasn't the chick in the coffee shop that like the waitress in the coffee shop that Captain America sort of saw and she had that bit at the end. I'm sure she's
I'm not 100% sure.
been
Who's
in
Gretchen in Recess? Putting that out there.
She's in a lot of things. She was what's her name in Ellie in The Last of Us. She voice acted for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if she.
I'd have to say that I'm hoping with J.J. Abrams' ability to twist, like Michael Bay. I know I'm about to get shot for this. Some of you really fucking hate him. Michael Bay has a formula. He sticks to it, right?
Honestly, his TV show, flagship is going to.
He better get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles correct, or I will punch him in his stupid face.
It's gonna suck so bad.
And there's the celebrity for the TMI who I would punch.
I mean, early Michael Bay was cool. Like
Bad
The Island.
Boys,
Like
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, early it was cool.
Bad Boys, The Island. I don't know if anybody's seen The Island except maybe me.
Yeah, I seen it.
But The Island is sort of atypical from Michael Bay's work now.
I love the Island.
With
honestly. I love it.
Michael Bay is very good at making action movies. I will give props where props is due. Michael Bay is very good at a solid action movie. My biggest gripe is the destruction of my childhood, Transformers, etc.
See, I was never super into
Anyway, guys, we're
Transformers.
starting to go a bit off topic, which is actually probably a good cue about the fact that we're actually nearly at the end of today's Hangout. And I think we've done a bloody good job at managing to like stay on topic.
We did a good
and we've done a good job, and now that everyone has
Kiwi.
Yeah!
Hello. No.
That's what happens when she tries to
singing. Still here, aren't I? Am I still here?
Okay, you're here. You were frozen for a little bit.
Okay, I think I was frozen a bit before, but I think I'm still here.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to end this now before I like fully fall off. So we'll go while we can still end it. So we'll head down the line. Everyone's safe and well. But I think just before we go, if you've got any other last-minute classic movies that you can think of that we haven't mentioned today, for me, I had Heathers, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Wayne's World, and Dirty Dancing. So be sure to add those in when you guys sign off. Backsorn, back to you to start us all off.
My name is Backsorn. I talk about movies. I talk about anime. I talk about video games. Sometimes I'll yell at the computer screen while playing computer games. And next.
Hi, my name is Meta. You can stalk me anywhere at MetaMedicine. I talk about UFC, movies, and 50 Shades of Grey.
Hello, I'm Alan. I'm Mr. Hairy Brit. That's my channel if you haven't seen me before. I do funny news. I do movie reviews, which many of these lovely people are part of. So, just to add, I would advise Battle Royale because, frankly, that's a movie that introduced me to a huge scene. And of course, and it had to happen, Kiwi, you gave me this, it's your fault. And of course, Debbie Does Dallas, because everybody loves a quintessential film that's wholesome for the whole family. Yeah.
Oh dear Lord. Okay, quickly moving on because I'm starting to lose connection for some reason. Hurry up, everyone.
Okay, who's next?
You.
Me? Just go.
Okay.
Everyone go. Everyone say bye.
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 Yeah, I'm really sorry, but I think for something weird is really happening here, so we're all just going to say farewell. Links to everyone will be down in the description bar. Be sure to check out everyone's channels. Hopefully I can actually stop this broadcast. We love you all, and we'll see you next week. Bye!
Bye-bye.